Hello and welcome to another Left Seat Culture video. My name is Dale, and again time for another video from my PPL Ground School Studies archive. This one was flight performance and planning, and in my experience this was the hardest of all the ground school exams for me. As you see, just squeezed past a pass on this one. I was fortunate I passed all of my ground school exams the first time. But yeah, let me share my experience with this one, flight performance and planning. I think I enjoyed it, but it was definitely the hardest exam out of all of them for me. So I'm not sure how interesting or helpful these video series has been, but with only a few more left to go in the series, so I figured I would carry on with it. So back on the 30th of June 2022, I've taken another exam, which is the Flight Planning and Performance exam, and I'm happy to say that I passed it. Only just 75%, but a pass is a pass. So I'll talk a little bit about how I found the exam in this video and kind of just talk you through some of my notes like I normally do. So as mentioned in the previous videos, when you take the exam and you get the results at the end, they don't tell you what questions you got wrong, but they do tell you what they call the knowledge deficiency report, and that's where you kind of get this little codes from the CAA syllabus that you can look up on the website, and I'll show it up on the screen as we go through it. And basically I got 3 questions wrong, which is why I got 75%, and the 3 categories were as follows, and then we'll talk about kind of my thoughts on kind of exam prep and how hard I found this one, etc. So first one, 032.01.01.03. This relates to effect of the aeroplane mass, wind, altitude, runway slope and conditions. So trying to cast my mind back, there are some questions in here obviously about runway slope, runway angles, approach speed and things, and clearly I must have misunderstood the question or just simply got it wrong. Next one, 032.01.03.01, and this is use of aeroplane flight manual data. So that's clearly a question that must have related to the Pilot's Operation Handbook or something, and I've just misinterpreted or got it wrong again. This is where it's not so helpful to realise what you got wrong. And then the last one is 033.01.03.02, which relates to aerodrome charts and directory, and it's highly possible that on one of the aeroplane or airfield charts that I've misinterpreted something there. I think from memory I got confused with whether something was a magnetic bearing or not, and clearly got the answer wrong. So that's kind of the results of my exam. So in terms of my preparation for this, so this is another one where again I continue to use the EasyPPL online learning system, and only EasyPPL for this exam, so none of the Pooley's books at all. I actually found the EasyPPL prep exams harder than the actual exam, which sounds strange because I still got 3 wrong, but again the EasyPPL still for me is an amazing resource and something that you should check out. I've got a separate video on the EasyPPL learning platform if you're interested, and also some information linked below. If you decide to use EasyPPL, use my name as a referrer code. That would be much appreciated. So in terms of how long I spent studying from a ground school perspective with EasyPPL for the flight performance and planning exam, I have my stats here. So I spent a total of 17 hours and 35 minutes doing ground school study for this exam. That's not the longest. I think meteorology and nav was still my longest one. This is definitely like the 3rd one in terms of the most amount of time that I've spent, and that was a total of 15 mock exams that I did, which is actually less than I thought it was. But these mock exams take longer to complete because in my opinion this is the hardest exam. There's lots more things that you've got to consider. It's good in terms of there's lots of some of the stuff from the older exams that you would have done, like the air law and things, but unlike the nav exam, which had absolutely no maps or charts in it or whatsoever, flight performance and planning does have maps in it, and it does have charts in there, and there's quite a few calculations and things that you need to consider to be able to answer the questions properly. So you're going to spend a lot more time doing calculations, looking through charts, working out kind of speeds, fuel usage, how much you need, heights, diversions and things. So to me this is more like what I think NAV should have been, but also makes sense that flight performance and planning is like this as well. So let me grab my notes and then I'll take you through kind of how I found the exam and some of the things that I struggled with that, you know, may be good for you to kind of get your head around ahead of time of preparing for this exam. So I think I've mentioned this before, my kind of learning strategy or style may or may not be helpful to you, but you've got to work out what works best for you. Hopefully by this stage, and this is one of the later exams, so you've kind of got your process kind of well honed. But basically what I do is I go through the EasyPPL content. I don't really make any notes at that stage. I basically slowly read through all the different slides, do the kind of tests in between each of the modules to make sure I'm kind of getting a hang of it. Whatever result I get, I still keep on and move all the way through until I've kind of absorbed or at least completed all of the slides and the information, and then I start taking the kind of final mock exams, and that's then where I start to kind of take more notes and focus on where I need to do additional learning and go back through the slides to make sure I understand things, and that's how I then start to make my notes on these little revision tabs. So in terms of the exam itself, you have 45 minutes to do this exam, and this is the first exam so far that I've pretty much nearly used all of the time that was available. So I spent, how was it, 39 minutes I think I was, maybe just under, in there. And so yeah, this is the first time that I've pretty much used all of the time required, and there's 12 questions to go through in that 45 minutes. Again, that might not seem too bad, just 12 questions, but that's, like I said in this one, there is lots of calculations and measuring and stuff that takes time during this exam. So when you go in there, you can take obviously your whiz wheel, and you can take your calculator, and you can take you know, your ruler, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it to make sure you're kind of ready and on top of everything. So a couple of the things that you're going to have to learn, and again you'll be going through this anyway, but the key things for me was to remember some key information, and to make sure you really read the questions properly. I mean, that's a given for any exams, but specifically in this one, there's going to be certain things where you read, or you have an extract from the plane, you know, owner's handbook, and there's going to be things in there about whether it has speed fairings or non-speed fairings. So make sure you really understand the question and add extra componentry or minus it based on whether it has speed fairings or not, whether flaps at a certain degree and stuff. So really pay attention, and they're going to be things where you're trying to work out fuel economy, how much power, glide speed or climb approach and stuff like that, and also landing conditions as well. So whether the landing is, you know, dry grass, wet grass, dry tarmac, different things. So really need to pay attention, and again still make sure you're understanding the whiz wheel so you can really quickly do your conversions from kilograms into pounds and US gallons into imperial gallons and all that sort of stuff. So things that you really need to kind of be quick with the whiz wheel, as you're going to consume a lot of time in that 45 minutes that you have. So in terms of some of the things that for me was important to keep in mind, so I think it was back from the NAV exam, making sure you understand how you work out how far you're off track and stuff like that. So remember, in the exams you can't kind of do the rule of thumb stuff where you're kind of like you would do when you're flying. You need to really remember that you've got the distance off track by nautical miles divided by the distance gone in nautical miles, times that by 60, and then you get the distance off track by nautical miles and the distance to go in nautical miles and times that by 60, and then you add those two together to kind of work out the angle and everything. So keep that in mind. Also need to understand the various different ICAO form items. So when you're traveling abroad, that's the form that you have to fill out, and it's very specific. You've got to understand, how you put, or the format you use for the aircraft registration and things like that. So make sure you understand how those forms are filled and what each of the items mean, so you can answer those questions effectively. Then again, understanding how you work out moment and arm. So again, just, you learned this already, but these are some of my notes. So remember to get the moment, so this is when you're doing your weights and balances, mass multiplied by arm gives you the moment. And obviously to get the reverse of that, arm is, you get the arm by taking the moment and divide it by the mass. So again, that's another one where lots of the questions, you got to make sure that the moment or the mass is really in the right format, and you have to kind of do that calculation to put it into the right pounds or whatever it may be. Also understanding, again, in addition to those ICAO forms, the part NTO requirements. This is going to be when you have to fill certain flight plans by, making sure that, if you're just going for an A to B flight and not multiple stops, how much fuel you need, when you need to have submitted a flight plan, what fuel reserves you need, that kind of thing. Also understanding many of the acronyms that we have here in the aviation industry. So you're going to see things like MAUM, so max all up mass. So this is to make sure, also you can understand that the aircraft's total mass is in line with the design limits to maintain a good weight and centre of gravity. There is other ones we got on here. Checking my notes out. Maximum zero fuel weight, maximum takeoff mass, maximum all up weight, we mentioned that already I think, maximum landing mass, and then understanding your V rates. So again, this is one of the ones I struggled with. So VNE, max permissible speed, VY, best climb speed, VX, best angle climb speed, VY obviously is usually the higher of the two. Going back to some of the stuff that you would have understood earlier in terms of total takeoff distance available, to clear 50 feet obstacles at the end of the runway, and that's where you're going to have your landing distances. And again, you can't use anything like Skybeam or anything like this. You've got to be able to look at the charts, work out the weights of the aircraft, what the weather's like, and then follow the kind of graphs down and mark the speed and the weight, and then follow up another bit if it's a tailwind or a headwind. So you've got to really keep track of doing that. When you're doing the EasyPPL training, one thing that I found quite difficult with that is obviously that's all on the screen, and you don't necessarily want to keep printing things out. But when you do the actual exam, your flight school will give you a handout sheet that's basically got all these things on that you're going to reference, so it does make it easier for using your line and stuff, but you can't mark any of them. So yeah, I think there's lots of stuff in here. Some stuff that may not necessarily make sense at first. So for me, reminding myself that an increased aircraft weight may mean a slower glide speed, and different things about takeoff rates. And obviously takeoff distance is required for it from an upslope or a downslope. Again, a lot of these stuff, if you're already flying, makes sense in your head because you've hopefully done a lot of this in practice, which I think is why it's good to do this exam towards the end. But just make sure you understand the weight differences and how you adjust the centre of gravity, and how you work out, if the pilot weighs a certain amount, the passenger weighs a certain amount, how many bags that they can have and how much fuel you've got in there. And again, making sure that it's not, some are being kilograms and some are being pounds, and you've got to work things out, and then the fuel are being imperial gallons or something. So make sure that you're working with the same numbers all the time when you're doing these calculations. So I guess that's it before I wish on too much. But again, make good notes, find the revision strategy that works for you. But that's it, another one of these ground school exams done out of the total 9. So that leaves me with 2 left. So next one that I'm working on is aircraft general knowledge. And then I think the final one I have after that is principles of flight. So I think those 2 should be easier than this one, because flight performance and planning was definitely the hardest one that I've had so far. And I won't lie, I'm kind of getting a bit sick of the ground school stuff, but nearly there. And then all I've got to do is my FRTOL radio exam. I've now, in terms of where I am with the flying, I've done obviously my solo flights, I've done solo nav, I've done a solo land away, so I'm currently working on prepping for solo cross country, and then fingers crossed, we pass the rest of these ground school exams in the next couple of months, and assuming weather and kind of instructor availability is good, then hopefully we're going to be ready for the skills test. So still hopefully on schedule by the end of 2022 to get my pilot's license. So I hope the video was helpful. I hope this kind of little series has been helpful. I don't know how much it is because, as you know from the videos, I'm just garbling on about kind of my thoughts and experiences as we go through it. But if you have, please consider liking and subscribing, pressing the bell notification. Be really very much appreciated. And if I'm really lucky, I'll see you in the next videos here on Left Seat Culture. Take care. Bye for now.